much energy, right? That's a blessing. Let's open our Bibles to Matthew chapter 6. As you turn to Matthew 6, Jesus Christ has very clear expectations for us. You're never in doubt knowing what Jesus wants from us. He demanded clearly absolute allegiance, and right here in Matthew 6:33 he says, "This is my plan for you. I want you to go through life seeking first my kingdom. Seek first the rule of God, his righteousness, and everything else is secondary to that." Now that's a great verse. Amen. That's almost impossible for most people to live. Apart from supernatural intervention, we were hardwired to not seek God first, seek ourselves first. That's how we're wired. So Christ expects us to have a supernatural transformation in our life. Now, what's interesting is, and this is just, I constantly am throwing in slides I use with my students, to give the young people a kind of an understanding of the big picture of the Bible. The left side, there's the cross. Christ was crucified around 30 to 33 AD, depending on which chronology you use. Harold Honer's, you know what I mean? There's so many different chronologies. But there's the cross, and then the ascension of Christ. He returns to heaven. And there's the first generation church, then the second generation church. So that's basically the New Testament period. And during that period, the Gospels and the epistles were finished and they spread widely. And then Jesus comes back at the right-hand side, visits all the 7 churches in Asia Minor, and checks to see if they're doing what we're talking about in this series. Did you know every one of the points that we're going through in the Lord's Prayer, Jesus noted that they weren't doing that in the 7 churches? The 7 churches were not obeying the seeking first. In fact, that's the first church. Ephesus has lost their what? First love. That Christ was not preeminent, he was not first, he was not most, he was not premier. Whatever word you want to use, the Greek word is prototokos, that he is the top, the sum of everything, and he wasn't. And the churches go down from there. And so the New Testament was written for us to know how to live for God in an ever-darkening world. Now think about their world. Their emperor, the different emperors that were marching through at the time, were gradually becoming more and more like what the Bible describes the final Antichrist is going to be. But by the way, the final Antichrist is going to be the ruler of a restored, revived Roman Empire. So they were living in kind of the beginning, the unfolding of the end of days. And that explains all the prophetic overtones. And so basically, only John is left, and Jesus visits and gives to him the revelation, and we know that. So how do we live this impossible way? How do we stay on track, constantly seeking that God's rule and his righteousness be preeminent in our life, most important? You know, what's interesting is we don't ever say anything is more important than the Lord. It's just like we have this top shelf in our life, and the Lord is up there, and our job is up there, and our family is up there, our finances are up. It isn't like anything's more important than the Lord. It's just they're all on the same often shelf. And that's very dangerous, and that's what the Lord said. So how do we stay on track? Well, let's go to this prayer. This is the most well-known passage in the Bible, as we talked about last night. Let's read it together. Now, I'm not going to make you stand up. I always make my students stand up, but it's not, you all are paying attention. I have them stand and repeat and sit down and everything. It just, young people need movement. Any of you noticed I don't stand still? Have you noticed that? Do you know why? Kids are so conditioned by starting with the MTV and now in the TikTok thing, their eyes follow movement. It's very interesting. And so I move around the whole time. Also, it helps my pedometer. Not really, I'm just teasing. Here we go. Let's read together the most well-known passage, okay? Our Father in heaven, Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.